Hi everyone, welcome back to Coffee, Books, and Rain. I'm Rachel with coffee, with books, no rain, but it actually did sprinkle this morning, so maybe that counts as I'm recording on that same day. Right now, super lovely outside, and honestly, I kind of wish I was by the pool, but today I'm taking it easy and drinking coffee. No workouts today. I tend to give myself one day as a break. So, we are diving into a book called The Starving Saints by Caitlin Starling. And I picked this book up because the cover was so incredibly intriguing and I wasn't really certain what to make of it. It kind of has a super eerie vibe. And the book itself is super eerie, creepy, horrific, gothic as well. And we're going to dive into that. But first, I also want to make a note that I also was reached out to by the publisher for Caitlin Starling with St. Martin's Press. And they, now I had also received this book on NetGalley, planning on reading it, absolutely. Have it slated, I think, for October. But they reached out via my email and asked if I wanted to receive a physical copy, to which I almost always do. I don't think I've ever turned down a free copy to read. But this book just seems so cool. It seems as though Caitlin Starling must be really good at this horror slash possibly body horror sort of genre. I'm not going to read the whole summary for the Graceview Patient, but I'm just going to say that it says misery meets invasion of the body snatchers in this genre-bending, claustrophobic, hospital gothic from the best-selling author of The Death of Jane Lawrence. I've not read Jane Lawrence, so I'm not sure what that book's about, but honestly, after reading The Starving Saints and about to dive into the Graceview Patients, which looks to be set to publish October 14th of 2025, I'm interested because she has a really gory yet bewitching way of turning a phrase. And that's where we're going to go ahead and dive into The Starving Saints and read the synopsis. Amar Castle has been under siege for 6 months. Food is running low and there has been no sign of rescue. But just as the survivors consider deliberately thinning their numbers, the castle stores are replenished. The sick are healed, and the divine figures of the Constant Lady and her saints have arrived, despite the barricaded gates offering succor in return for adoration. Soon the entire castle is under the sway of the saviors, partaking in intoxicating feasts of terrible origin. The war hero of Servoin gives her allegiance to the Constant Lady. Focine, a disorganized, paranoid, nun-turned-sorceress, races to unravel the mystery of these new visitors and exonerate her experiments as their source. And in the bowels of the castle, a serving girl, Trela, I keep wanting to move that I after the L and call it, anyway. Trela is torn between her thirst for secret vengeance against Voin and the desperate need to escape from the horrors that are unfolding within Amar's walls. As the castle descends into a bacchanalian madness, forgetting the massed army beyond its walls in favor of hedonistic ecstasy, these women are the only ones to still see their situation for what it is. But they are not immune from the temptation of the castle's new masters, or each other, and their shifting alliances and entangled pasts bring violence to the surface. To save the castle and themselves will take a reimagining of who they are and a reorganization of the world itself. It is considered horror, fantasy. I'm not sure where this historical fiction comes in, because again, when I think of historical fiction, you're giving me a real time and place and a made up sort of situation. So that's where I'm kind of like, they don't really seem to refer to anything historically. They only seem to kind of refer to something in or within medieval times. It feels like that. It does have a bit of queer, LGBT, lesbian, adult, and gothic. I want to go ahead and preface real quick and right off the bat, this book does have body horror. It does have cannibalism. So just putting that in there. If those two things are things that bother you, please be aware this may not be a book for you. However, if it's just an intriguing fiction book, fiction/fantasy, that you are looking for, that is absolutely a spiral into madness for so many of the characters within, then I suggest you read on. I thought this was really quite wildly creative. And so we're going to dive into my summary. So hang on just a second. I actually wrote mine earlier today. First, a sip of coffee in my hipster mouse mug. I think when I got this, so when I was in Pensacola, and there's a couple episodes from when I was in Pensacola, I was borrowing their mug that had like this hipster bunny on it, and I was really intrigued by it. I went online, found the hipster mouse, and I tried to buy both the mouse and the bunny, but the bunny, they couldn't find it in their stock, so they ended up sent me this one with a discount. So thanks to them, I got a cute mug in his little suspenders. He definitely looks like he would be a guy making my coffee at like a really upscale coffee shop. But I say that because I swear there's a coffee shop in Chicago called Intelligentsia where a lot of the baristas have that sort of like hipster vibe to them. It's really fun. But diving back into this book, and it's called The Starving Saints. I guess the castle, the keep where all these people are, is under siege. And it's been under siege for about 6 months. Now, when something is under siege, it means they can't get out and the people outside can't get in. So also the people outside may do some attacking, but honestly, they're just there to wait you out. Because they know that the people inside are going to eventually run out of supplies. And the goal or the hope is that the ones inside the keep, the ones trying to hold the line, so to speak, that they will give up and surrender. Well, they don't want to do that, but as this book opens, there's only about 15 total days left of food, and I don't know if that's for everybody or what, but it seems as though they are down to the most piddling of rations. Now, Focine she used to be nun, and she used to be part of like the church that they have within their realm. However, she turned into a heretic that must have either questioned or what have you. She does miss her time being part of that cloister. However, she is now considered the king's madwoman and has her own tower room where she does various experiments. The one thing that she has done so far by the time this book opens is Focine has figured out a way to take water that has been spoiled through refuse or body fluids or what have you. She can add a powder to it and the water becomes clean. It becomes really pretty pristinely clean. Now, the king himself is kind of still hesitant of drinking it because he only drinks from this one particular cistern that's like under the kitchen. But for the most part, the keep at least has fresh water. They do not have food. So the king approaches Focine and says, well, if you've already done one miracle, I don't see why 2 would be such a big deal. And I'm like, I don't think that's how that works. I'm not sure miracles like a 1 in a million sort of chance. Sure, she figured something out, but I don't think that means we've got another one in our back pocket. But she's determined to try, so some of her experiments sound absolutely heinous. but not as heinous as some of the other events that happen throughout this book. Now, she seems to try to grow seeds within some rotting meat. She seems, I don't know, I guess she's trying to bring the living from the dead. It's confusing. But she does end up making a candle that does not burn the wax. It's kind of like this continuously burning candle. And it does not require a spark to light it. It takes a little bit of blood and sulfur, apparently, to make it light. And then it will light until you either purposefully put it out, or I think if you get it wet, it's like fine, because there's one candle that she talks about that she has like submerged in water, but it's still like if she takes it out, it's like still burning. It's wild. Now, that's another thing about this book, is that it is wild. It is, as someone else says, a fever dream. And honestly, I read this book like watching a train wreck happen. It is like, not in the bad way, and I hate to say, it's tragic, yes, and it's horrific, and people lose their lives, but it's so hard to look away. And I think that's where this book had me gripped. It's not often that I will say a book grips me, because I think that's a pretty bold statement to make, is to be gripping like that. However, with this one, I was fascinated. I did not know what to expect when I picked it up. I really didn't, because when I read part of the summary, I was a little confused. And even in the first maybe chapter or so, I was a little confused. I could tell it was fantasy. It's very dark. It's very gritty, bloody, and again, cannibalistic. Because we are running out of food. And as people are passing away, the question becomes, okay, well, is this the person we're going to serve to the rest of the people? Now, historically, of course, cannibalism has always been terrible, but survivors do what they have to do to survive. And that's been seen in several major incidents. I'm fairly certain we've had serial killers who have done the same sort of issue. In this book, it is a matter of survival, but I also just don't understand at this point, if you have so few people left, and honestly, I don't know. I think personally, maybe I'll just give up and turn myself into the other army with the hopes that either they'll go ahead and kill me, or let me have some food and I'll join their ranks. Sure. I would not be part of the nobility. I would definitely be a plebeian who's just struggling, and I'd be like, please let me out. I don't want to be in here anymore. I don't know. That's maybe my thoughts, but we do have three characters who tend to be the ones who are not fully under the sway of the Constant Lady and her saints. Now, the Constant Lady, funny enough, is supposedly the patron or the deity that the local convent or nunnery or whatever have you seems to follow and believe, or worship. So when she shows up, the head of this convent goes apeshit. She's like, this is not the Constant Lady. This is not the deity that we have been praying to. But the Constant Lady comes in and she's like, oh no, here's some food. I'm here to feed the people. Anybody who eats that food falls under her sway in a very ravenous way, I guess you could say, to the point that they start giving up their limbs to be offered up as food as well. But you do become almost like her pet in a lot of different ways as well. So we have Servoin, who at one point does fall under the sway of the Constant Lady. We have Focine, who is our sorceress / mad woman, who seems to have, she does seem at some points to fall under the sway a little bit, but there's also something about Focine that seems to be able to repel the Constant Lady and her saints. And then we have Trela. And Trela used to be nobility, but now, after her father was beheaded, just wants out. Apparently, she does blame Servoin for her father's death, but we do learn some information about maybe why or why not Servoin had done that, as well as Trela having a way to maybe get out of the castle. It seems to be a fairly magical way to get out, and she kind of learns things about the world outside that cause her to want to return to the castle to almost share what she's learned. Anyway, I love the fact that this particular person, Nat, she makes a little list of the things that it has. Mind control food, check. Scary bees, check. Cannibalism in a literal sense within this book, so please be aware that this book has that, and it could be triggering to be gnawing on someone's leg. I'm just saying. There are 3 women who this Nat describes as toxically dependent on one another. Very true. They don't seem good for each other, yet for some reason they have joined forces to try to save this castle. And yeah, a weird cult-like religion definitely in here as well. So those are some things that Nat has pointed out that I also wanted to bring to the front of the table. There is so much going on in this book, but just know it's got debauchery, it's got the Bacchanalian madness. It does feel as though almost everybody in this book is just spiraling into madness till you don't know what's real and what may be a fever dream. And I think that's why it was so captivating, because I don't frequently find books like this. Because even though many of the characters are not what you would call likable characters, you still want them to succeed in a lot of ways. Now, sometimes there are unlikable characters that you still want to want them to make it to the end. Sometimes there are unlikable characters that I just don't care about. These are unlikable characters that I wanted to see what happened till the end. Because if you give me a character that's both unlikable and just unappealing for me to even care whether they make it to the end or not, then that's where someone may lose me in the process. But giving me an unlikable character who's purposefully designed to really forward the plot, give me some tension points, and to really, I don't know, build relationships in weird ways, I'm there for it. I really am. Like, it's working. I don't know why, but it's working. I've had people in my life who are kind of like that. They're both toxic and I still love them anyway. And I'm like, I cannot quit you. Anyway, but with all of that being said, I know I've run on a little bit about this book, probably just a minute or so longer than I usually would, but it's because there's so much in this book that was captivating. And I could really continue telling you things without telling you how things end up. But I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to leave it there. And maybe you'll want to read this. I certainly think you should. It was released on May 20th of 2025. And it has approximately, let's see real quick, 350 pages. I do believe my audiobook was somewhere around, I want to say 13-ish hours, but it felt like it flew by. It really did. I think I was just that engrossed into this story. But thank you so much for tuning in. If you have not liked and subscribed already, I hope you will. And thank you for joining me on this journey. I will see you on the next page. Have a great one. Bye.